In this video, I am editing your guys' photos that you submitted to me, and every photo is either a banger or has something that I can teach you in it. And I'm so excited because I'm finally releasing V2 of the Lightroom toolkit and V2 presets. So go pick those up down below and use this code here because it's only gonna last a week to give you guys an additional 10% off. Let's dive in. To start out, we are editing a Porsche submitted by ARSX Media, and you guys know I love my Porsches. This is a really cool photo because it's nighttime. He did everything that he could, given the fact that it looks like he's using a crop sensor camera, keeps his ISO as low as he can, sets his aperture first, and then is limiting himself to the shutter speed. So coming over to the toolbox, we're gonna hit start here. What that does is it just takes away any of the profile corrections and chromatic aberration from that specific lens and camera combo. From there, I'm gonna bring the highlights down just a bit to maintain the details in this back light here. Then I'm gonna up my shadows just so that the tire detail is coming through, but we want to avoid bringing that noise in, and we can bring down some of that noise later. Hold Option, bring our blacks down till we just hit the crush point. So you can see everything black there is gonna be crushed blacks, and I don't want it to be all the way gone. I want it to just be a little bit, so that about there. From there, we get to pick our contrast point. I'm gonna add a touch of dehaze, and then to make it a nice moody kind of nighttime vibe, I'm just gonna bring down that saturation, and we're gonna add back some of the warmth and the blues in our color grading panels. Coming over to our curves panel, I'm just gonna come over here and pick one of my favorites on here. And I think a contrasty fade looks good on this photo. It adds a little bit of a swoop on the tail end of our curve here. And then I'm going to obviously bring the saturation back up on the tail light because we really want that to pop, and we're going to check if adding luminance makes that pop as well, and it really does. So I love that. We're going to bring some of the oranges back up in the photo to add color contrast. Bring the aquas down, always lands in the windshield, and then blues, we're gonna fiddle with that a little bit once we get into the color grading panel. If we come over here, we've got all different kinds of colors, so we can pick from these predetermined ones. Picking Detail Bay, I think it adds a really cool warmth to this photo, but I also wanna add some color grading, so I'm gonna come into Classic Cool, and what that affects is just the color grading panel here, and it adds blues into the shadows, and you can tell by bringing the balance forward and backward. Lets us know, and we can even add a bit more saturation into the blues if we want to make those colors kind of contrast a little bit more. Now coming down to the details, I do have a couple presets down here that will help you with different types of sharpening. I'm just gonna hold Option here and drag the masking up because it's actually sharpening the noise in the photo. As you can see on the door panel there, it's actually sharpening noise. So we wanna drag this until it's just sharpening the outlines of the car, and then we can drag up the noise reduction a good amount because it is a bit noisy, and then again we can add that sharpening back just to make sure it's still a nice sharp image. And it looks smooth, it looks pretty good considering it was shot on a crop sensor camera. Now from here, we're gonna go and add some masking to this. I want to make this car really pop out. So we're gonna darken the lower a bit, we're gonna darken the top a touch, and then we're gonna add a radial exposure that brings exposure just to the middle section. And then from here, we're gonna select on the car, and this uses AI to pick the car out and add a little bit of exposure and a little bit of contrast to the details on the car. So pretty slick looking photo. Thanks ARSX Media for submitting. This next photo was submitted by Yarrow Media, and I love this photo. I think it's a beautifully shot photo. The composition's really nice. I think the red's gonna pop. It's winter, so we're gonna go for a kind of moody blue edit on this one. So to start, again, we're always gonna come up and just hit start here. And I'm gonna pick, ironically, Snow Day. I think it adds a nice amount of contrast to this image. Coming down to the curves, let's see what we can do. This is a nice soft, nothing crazy. From here, we're just gonna crop the image as best as we can, and I'm gonna come over here and start fiddling with the saturation just to make it vibey and cold. So there's a good start. From here, I wanna come down and desaturate the yellows. I don't want these lines to draw too much attention. We're gonna pop our red back up to make sure that it is the focus of our photo. And let's see if we pop the luminance as well if that stands out. Coming down to the color grading panel, I know I want to have this kind of balance to the cool side, so I'm gonna go Classic Cool there. From here, we're gonna go into our shadows and just make sure that the blues are coming in as much as we want. We can kind of drag that as far as we want. Again, this is just affecting the shadows color, so not the entire image. So the red kind of maintains its integrity in there. From here, we're just gonna go ahead and sharpen the photo, kind of like make it stand out because it kind of grabs the snow quite well. And then from here, we're going to add some filters. So we're going to darken the lower a little bit, darken the top. Maybe not. Maybe we'll actually lighten the top a little bit. And from here, select the car. The AI does its business. We're going to come up here and we're actually going to expose that a little bit more. Now, every time you add exposure into your car, you also want to add a little bit of contrast so it sits more naturally inside of the photo. If you just pop your exposure, it starts to like stand out really, really funky. You don't want that. So you're just going to add a little bit of exposure and then add that contrast to make sure that it stands out just how you want it. And I'm seeing in the windshield, we've got some blues and aquas. So I'm going to see if I can come take those out of the windshield. Yeah, you can see the aqua always lands there. A little bit of desaturation in the blue. And if we wanted to, we could always come up to the white balance and just drag that over to the blues. But that starts to affect the color of a car. But there you go. Nice, moody, blue edit. So thanks so much to Yarrow Media for submitting. This next photo was submitted by Derenov Photography, and there's something really cool I want to teach you guys about this. Typically, I desaturate a lot of yellows to make a very clean image. Yellow lands in the cement and the road oftentimes, so I desaturate it, but I don't want to desaturate the car. So I'm going to show you guys a really cool way to make the yellow still stand out and desaturate the road using our filters. Okay, so we've done a really quick edit here just to get it to a good baseline. We're gonna crop this first thing before we add any of our filters. Just gonna get that put in the center of our photo and maybe even near the bottom a little bit. So I'm gonna darken the lower portion. Again, this just draws our eye to the car. So if you hit M, we're gonna drag a linear gradient from the bottom. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna desaturate so that we can desaturate all the gross colors that come in the cement there. And you can see that it's also affecting the car. So we're just gonna hit subtract and then hit select subject, and that's gonna take away the subtraction of the car there. So then we can drag this as far as we want and it won't impact the car. And look at what it's doing to the ground there. It's making it super clean and giving us that really cool blue to contrast the yellow on the McLaren there. And then from here we can hit car, select subject, and that's also going to give us a nice good pop on the car there. Make sure that our contrast is set right and our blacks as well so that it sits naturally in the photo. Now for me, the last thing I want to do is take out the aquas and the gross colors from the windshield here. You can always see it in there. It's so nasty. Just desaturate it, and it very rarely impacts the blues as well. So super great. This next photo was submitted by 040, which is a clever name. I love this photo because it's a photo that a lot of us take in a parking garage. I slapped on one of my favorite new presets to this, and I think it looks amazing. It's called Signature Monochrome. Gives us this super moody look, and just with one click, this thing looks banging. Like, I'm so happy with how this looks before and after. Now, Signature Monochrome is not going to be a part of the V2 pack, but it will be sold separately on the website, or if you guys join the YouTube fam, you click the join button down there, you will get this Signature Monochrome for free. I'll give you guys a code in the membership channel to get this for free. In this photo, Cars Photo Japan took a nighttime photo, which can be hard to do in the first place. And then editing it can also be difficult. So I'm gonna walk you guys through this entire edit without using presets because I wanna show you what I would do from start to finish. Now, to start with the settings, he did pretty good here. He must have been on a tripod or something because his shutter speed's quite low at 1/15. The only thing is, it looks like his lens can go down to 2.8 and he shot at 4.0, which would have allowed him to then bring his ISO down a little bit. So the only thing I would have done was shoot at 2.8. Now, of course, the first thing we want to do is the lens correction and remove the aberration there. And then we're just going to head up top here and we're just going to add some exposure to the photo, bring down the highlights so we can retain the details in the headlights there, bring up the shadows till we can see all the details we want in. I'm looking at the tires to make sure that I'm bringing out the details in the car. The whites, we're not going to do too much with there, and then blacks, we want to make sure we're not crushing anything from there, and then we can pick our contrast point. So already we've brought out a lot of detail in here, but we want to draw our eye just to the car. Let's just do a quick crop here, bring it in and drop it down so that that car is central. Add a little bit of dehaze, and then I'm going to desaturate this photo again. It's a nighttime photo, and I'm going to bring the colors back. So after desaturating the image, I'm going to come down and bring back the colors that I want, The yellow looks good there. I'm going to desaturate the green because it's coming in on the car here, and the aqua, so you can see it always lands in the windshield. So there we go. From here, I'm going to do my color grading. So I'm going to come over here to color, and I'm going to do classic cool, and make sure to bring up the blues. We've got the warmth and the highlights, so I'm going to drag that up a bit as well, and then add the balance. So from here, we're just going to make sure our sharpening is on point. Noise reduction, we're going to bring up a bit so we can remove some noise from the image here. Now let's go into our masking. I'm going to start with a linear gradient and draw attention to the car here. Holding shift, drag that up. We're going to drop down the exposure, drawing our eye to the car. We're going to subtract subject to make sure that we're not darkening anything on the car here. You can see that helps a little bit. Now I'm going to actually add a radial gradient, and we're going to draw it over the tower here, and we're going to help bring the details of that tower out. So I'm going to add exposure and then add contrast, and that should help it sit naturally. Add some saturation, maybe some dehaze to make it sit. And if you look at that before and after, helps a ton bringing the details out there. Create a new mask, select subject, picks our car really well. And we're just going to add exposure a little bit and add contrast to make sure it sits nicely. I tend to bring down the highlights a bit and add a bit of shadows. Again, just bringing up the shadows and the details like the rims and stuff, and that helps a lot. So here's a really quick before and after, and that car is popping out of this image like crazy. I mean, it helps that it's yellow for sure. Colby Tate submitted this photo of this beautiful Audi, and I love the mood of this photo, so I'm excited to edit this one. I think we can do a lot with the sky and bringing out the details of this car. So first, we're gonna start with chromatic aberration. Then let's see what we can add to bring a nice moody vibe on this one. I like detail bay on this. Let's see what we can do with the curves. Ooh, softening is nice. We're just gonna bring up the exposure a little bit. Now adding color, which one do we wanna do here? Cityscape brings out a lot of the colors in the sky, so let's go with that one there. And I'm just gonna bring down the highlights to keep the details in the sky. Make sure our car's popping, make sure we're not crushing any blacks, even though we've got the fade a little bit. And then make sure we've got some noise reduction. There's a little bit of noise in the image here, so I'm just gonna drag that up a little bit. Now from here, we're going to add our masks filters. So darken the lower, bring our eye back to the car, darken the top, make that sky nice and moody. We're going to select the car and subject, and we're going to start dealing with that and making sure that that's really popping out nicely. I'd like to desaturate that a little bit, make the whites really look nice. And I'm looking up in the top left corner to make sure that that car still looks good, but still fits naturally. You don't want it to like pop out too much, and it just looks unnatural. So we're just going to sit about there. And again, the contrast will help that sit naturally in the photo. Take the aquas out of the windshield. I think I want to desaturate the image quite a bit, but then if we select the sky, maybe we can bring back some of the colors in just the sky. Nice. So then the car maintains its white image, but the sky we can bring the moody colors into. And I think that that looks pretty good. We'll just subtract the subject from that mask there. Make sure that it lines up really nicely with the road. And here you go. Here is a before and after. Nice shot, Colby Tate 1999. All right, so this shot submitted by About Cars Yo is an absolute banger. I love it. And something we can learn from this is he's shooting in bright, sunny conditions. So let's take a look at his settings really quick. He set his aperture at 2.8, which is great. He set his ISO at 100, and then he used his shutter speed at 1/640. So he just cranked that up till he got proper exposure, and this photo is looking great. I don't think we can screw this one up, but we're gonna start by cropping it and just making sure that the horizon line is straight and that the car then is in the center of our photo. And I love his composition on this, how he kind of shot through something. That's super cool. So we're gonna bring the highlights down, make sure we're maintaining our sky. And then we're just gonna bring the details out in the rims, make sure this car is popping, make sure we're maintaining all of our dynamic range of that camera. And again, I'm gonna desaturate the yellows here and make sure that it's a super clean image. Let's make sure our green is nicely saturated and popping using the luminance. From here, I want to save the sky, but make sure my midtones, the car is still popping, and then bring contrast back using the bottom third of the curves layer. And I'm gonna add some warmth to this one. I'm gonna sharpen it with a little grit because I love the textures here. And then from here, we're gonna darken the lower, bring attention to the car, darken the top. Just gonna select our car here, make sure that that is popping out. And that looks like it's popping a little bit too much for me. So I'm actually gonna come and bring the exposure down on that one. Great shot and beautiful Aventador, as we all know. So thanks so much About Cars Yo for submitting this photo. This is such a sick photo submitted by Karen. Sorry, man, I botched that. Beautiful photo. I'm super excited to edit this one. It is both a Porsche and just an absolute banger. I'm just gonna try my best not to screw this one up, to be honest, because it is such a nice photo. We're gonna use Snow Day, actually. That looks pretty good. And then we're just gonna come and find a curve that works well on this photo. Mid-tone pop looks good too, so we'll do that. Then we're gonna come into our colors and pick the right color for this one. I think I'm gonna do teal and orange on this. It does look like a video game, so I'm gonna make it look a little bit cinematic. Maybe we'll add a little bit of warmth. That looks good. A little bit of grit we'll add to the details here. Make it stand out. Really makes that car pop and the road pop out as well. Super good photo. Again, we're just gonna draw our eyes to the car, come up to our mask panel, make sure that it's not taking any darkness out of the vehicle there. Select our car, and from here, we're just gonna make sure that that's not popping too much. Bring the highlights down, bring the details up. One really cool thing we can learn from this photo, again, is in the settings. He's probably hanging out at the back of a car, and he has this shutter speed set probably as low as he can get it without making the car go all shaky. So he's got it set at 1/25 of a second. So he's gonna be really steady or have great stabilization in his camera. But obviously the car came out sharp and the road in front of him is super blurry and all around. So we've got a pretty cinematic shot here. Again, this takes so little editing because it was captured so well. This next photo was submitted by John's Car Photos, great name. It's a great photo of this Corvette, and I'm just gonna slap on one of my presets. We're gonna start with Spit Shine, and then we're just gonna do a few adjustments from here. So some of these already have masks and filters put into them. So here we've got the radial exposure. I just wanna make sure that that's sitting nicely on the car and drag that down. But I love what this preset is doing to the greens. We're quickly just gonna crop to make sure that this is straight and maybe even draw it in closer to the car. There's a lot going on in this photo, but we wanna make sure that the car is always the focus. And quite honestly, there's not much more that I would do to this. I think the green's really popping on the Corvette. I love the mood of this shot. Way to get out there, John's Car Photos, during the moody weather and get an awesome photo. This photo of the Audi R8 was submitted by NKLS Shots. Thanks so much. It looks awesome. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna crop it and make sure that it is straight. For the most part, the composition on this photo is really, really good. And I think I'm just gonna pick a quick preset here, and stance looks pretty ballin' on it. I'm just gonna make sure to tweak some of the colors to make sure it works good here. Take the aquas out. The greens are really popping. I wanna make those brake calipers stand out and add some luminance to those. I wanna make sure that the car is popping as well, so we can drag that up just a little bit more. Black cars are hard, but for the most part, this Audi is looking really, really nice. It's a great shot to start with, which makes adding presets or doing quick edits super awesome. So nice shot, Nicholas Shots. I'm assuming that's how you say it. And thanks so much for submitting. This photo here was submitted by Focused on Creative. Great shot, and I figured this was a great opportunity for me to use the Sea Breeze preset. And we're just gonna bring down the exposure, make sure that our sky is still, ooh, crushed, no. Bring back the blacks, make sure we've got as much detail in here as we can. Bring our horizon line around, add contrast. Then we're just gonna make sure that our car is really popping. Just bring the aquas out of the windshield. So fiddling with the curves, I'm able to kind of adjust the exposures of the sky and the car a little bit. So I want that sky to pop and the car to pop, but also sit really naturally in the frame. And the last thing that I would do on this one is let's add a brush layer, and we're just gonna add a bit of exposure here, little bit of contrast, and we're just gonna bring out the details on the rims here. Nothing crazy, but just add a bit of more brightness in the dark areas. And it's gonna make a big difference in the final image, just being able to see those cool details. Here's a little before and after. Super simple, but it makes a huge difference. Thank you guys so much for submitting. Make sure to go check out the Lightroom presets down below. It helps the channel out an absolute ton, and I know that they work great on your guys' photos, and that toolkit works for everything, not just for cars. So I really appreciate you guys watching and submitting and trusting me with your creative work and my creative eye. But thanks so much for your time. Feel free to subscribe if you guys are into this kind of content, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace.